Okay, hello. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, good. I've also shared the link to the presentation, so uh, you can feel free if you have maybe two monitors, you can still have a copy of it, uh, which is okay. So we are going to look at React props and state today. Okay, so because I promise you guys are going to we'll look at props and state in today's lesson. So this is what I prepared for you guys. Okay, so React props and state. Okay, so because this is once you understand state and props, React becomes so much easy for you to get to have like to to learn. The curve just simply becomes so low. So if I just maybe go to the next slide, and the first question is asked, what are props? What do I mean by props? Okay, what are they exactly? Okay, and props is just a special word. It's just a word like you have seen React, you have seen maybe libraries. It's like a word React which stands for properties, and it's being used for passing data from one component to another. Okay, so in just terms you can say it's just data that the parent passes to the children. Okay, so props are passed as component attributes. Like for example, I'm going to show you them in a little bit. So props are passed as attributes to the component, just like HTML attributes, just the way you add maybe an ID, just the way you add a class, maybe just the way you add a data attribute to an HTML element, because mostly the components are usually uh, written as JSX, the HTML kind of syntax. You pass them as attributes. Okay, we saw that previously, but we're going to look at it today also. But I can recap. And when props are passed to the child components, they are available as uh, they are available as okay, something. They are available as the child parameter. Okay, so they are available inside the parameter of the function. Since we are using function-based components, they are available as the parameter of the function component or as a property called props in the class component. We did look at class components, but I will have maybe a glimpse of them because uh, class components they work, uh, but they are being phased out little by little because most developers are running towards using hooks and using function-based components because when it gets with classes can get a bit hectic, especially for newcomers, for guys who are new to JavaScript. But I'm going to look at it later on. So properties of props, although it's just to explain, but like what are characteristics of props? Okay, so props, the first one which you should have in your mind, props flow in a unidirectional way. That means they come from the parent to the child. They never come from the child to the parent. Okay, so I'll show a diagram of how props flow and what's the parent and what's the child. And the second one is props are read-only data, cannot be mutated by the child. Okay, so the props are simply data which is like unmutable. Okay, immutable. That means it simply does not change within a component where it's passed through. And the third one can change by the can change inside the child component. Not that a mistake here, but they can change. Okay, but we're going to look at how they change. But for now, yes, the two major ones are the first ones, how they flow, and how and you cannot change them. Okay, and if you change them, you have to complain because they're not supposed to be changed. They're supposed to be only passed through. Okay, and this is a diagram of a prop. Okay, of how props flow. Okay, so for example, we have our component which is the parent. We have our form component, which is the form component. Then we have the to do component. Then we have the to do list component. Then we have the to do component. This is what we did last Wednesday, and Monday, the to-do app, and we had a form, we had a to-do list, I think we did have the to-do, but we had the form, we had also the to-do list, and we can see the props. You see this arrow here to show that the props simply flow from the parent to the child. They never flow from the child to the parent. So this is the parent, this app is the parent, and this is the child, and the flow from the flow from the parent to the child. So that's why they're saying props I are unidirectional. They flow in one direction. Okay. So one direction, one direction, one direction. Okay. And props is just data passed through. Okay. And you have said it can be accessed through the chat component as a parameter. Okay. Code props or as a property code props. And as we continue, okay, let's get from this. What's this? Okay, see it there. So as we continue, we are seeing sorry, I think the props part of it is done. Okay, we'll look at props later on and an example of props. But let's move on to the next part because props I've showed you last time. We discussed props. We took examples of props. Is okay. The next part is state. Okay, so state. So what is state? Okay, state is just a plain JavaScript object. Okay, it's a plain JavaScript object of a set of observable. English is just kind of messy. Sorry about that, but it's just an object of observable properties that control the behavior of the component. Okay, let me just change that. So it's just a set of observable properties that control the behavior of the component. Okay, so these are just kind of terminologies which are slick, but in simple terms, you can see simple state is just a plain or JavaScript object. Okay, it's just a plain object, and so it is a it's a plain JavaScript object of observable properties that control the behavior of the component. Okay, in other words, state of a component is an object that holds some information. Okay, that may change over the lifetime of the component. We're gonna see how state can change. Okay, and we saw, I think we have an example of how state changed. Okay, how state changed because we're using that set state set state set state using the set state method and use state hook. You could be able to add to change the difference change the different properties of a state. Okay, so if you want to read further, there's a link here going to overview, like the actual repository is called uber view, and it's one of the recommended kind of reference on how you can define between props and state. Okay, so just read through this. It's just like a 2-minute read. Okay, it's like a 5-minute read. You can just look at it. Okay, let's go to the next one. So this is this. You can go ahead and read it. Let me share it one more time with you guys in the chat. But still, you have a copy of the slides, so you can of course go ahead and have a look at it. Okay. Okay. So then the next slide, we are going to look at properties of state. Okay. the way we look at properties of props. Okay, and the thing is, when it comes to higher kind of, if you are advanced JavaScript, you have something called like private and public. Public. Okay, even here, with normal JavaScript, you have scope. Okay, so we have the first one which says it belongs to the component. That means the state is just uh, like state only belongs to that component. That means state can never belong to different components. Okay, for example, if the app component has state, it can give its state to other small components. But if let me show an example here. Okay, an example with a prop. So here, this diagram here. If I look at this diagram, I can say that the app when app has state, it can share it between the form, can share it within the to-do list, can share it within the to-do, can share it anywhere. Okay, but when it comes to form having maybe state, sharing it with to-do list, it, it becomes a bit hard. So what we do is we carry the state from the form, we put it within the app, so it can be accessible to the to-dos. So props and state, they're almost they're kind of very similar, because the way they flow is almost the same way, and they compensate each other. Okay, they supplement each other. Okay, so go look at them in detail with actual and according example. And as the first one, it belongs to a component, it's private. The second one, it is must be treated as immutable. Okay, that means you cannot say maybe uh, assuming having a counter, say counter then equal something. You have to use some kind of a method, okay, which is provided by React. It's either you can either use the use state hook, or you can use the state uh, method available in the class component. And the third example is cannot be changed by the parent, okay, only changed by the component is declared. So this is a bit confusing, very confusing to many people, but just know that state can be changed. So you know, like you mind that state to some extent, when you declare state within a child, okay, let me show you an example here with here. When a state maybe state within the to do, it has no access, like to do list has no access to this state to do, it has no access to the state here. Okay, so for example, if I have state within maybe to do list here, the app has no access to the state. That's what it's meaning. Okay, the same thing as private. So just repetition, but just to get it out there that when it comes to state, let me see a bit. Okay, state, uh, the to-do list has a private state. That means the app has no access to the state. Okay, but when the app has the state, because this to-do list is just like an element, it has access to the state. Okay, that's what they're saying here. Cannot be changed by the parent, can only change by the component declared in. Okay, I'm not sure this, but I'm saying why. Okay, it's all right. So that's how you can understand it. Okay, you can read more about the two differences with the link I sent you on GitHub, one for Uber, and let's continue the next part. The last part is okay. So because today you are focusing on state, okay, so yeah, ask yourself when to use state, okay, because we don't have to use state every time, okay. That's why there's a note here saying use state only when you need it, okay, as it can affect the performance of your application. Why am I okay? So it can affect the performance of what of your application. Your application. So because when it comes to when it comes to when it comes to when it comes to React, okay, uh, when you put too many state values, it can get a bit overwhelming, and it has like the application has to track all the different states, okay, because we have said that our definition of what of state is observable properties that control the behavior of the component. Imagine you have maybe like 300 states, and they're all changing, okay, but they're doing nothing in the application. They're not kind of important, and your application maybe is a simple static website. It can get a bit kind of slow and sluggish because you are changing state here and here when it's not what recommended, okay, to change that, to just change it. uh, so for example, you cannot, of course, every time simply say I use state, then maybe put a counter here, maybe I put a name, because name, assuming the name of application uh can always be kind of doesn't change. Okay, so state, in simple terms, you only need to use state when you have some data which will change in the future. Okay, when you have data which is static, you don't need to use state, because state is only there to track. Is data which is like changeable, can change something, you can track. Okay, so now we're going to have an example of of state, of how to use state, how to implement state. Okay, and the example which is like the norm, like the, how can I say it, what's the right word to say, but the commonest example, okay, is to have some kind of an old system. Okay, so I'm going to have uh, a simple login page, okay, on the front end to capture inputs. Okay, very simple, just like the way we did at to do app. Remember everything in your mind. Remember in your mind that all the inputs and outputs and all the crude, like crude, create, read, update, and delete, they all are originating from the concept of a simple to do app. Okay, so as I said before, we'll repeat it many times. Every application like that requires the user to input and to display something is always a to do app, but which is like made bigger. Okay, it's an oversized to do app. Like for example, Facebook is an oversized to do app. Okay, the login to something is also an oversized to do app. Okay, but with some security here and here. Okay, so the next part is, this is what we're gonna create. Okay, this is what we're gonna create. Although here it looks nice, but once you're creating it, it may look ugly without a CSS. But it's up to you on how you can design it. Okay, so this is a login form. For those who are not here, this is a simple login form. Okay, this is a simple login form. Very simple login form. You have the email, and password. You have two values. And if you look at this login form, you can also maybe derive the blog app having one input, second input. Okay, the difference is I'm using inputs and inputs, but you can use maybe text input and text area. Okay, it's up to you. And maybe a button which just say login. Okay, so when I come to the next part, what I do, of course, every single time I build application React, I go ahead and I go ahead and I go ahead and break down the application into segments, into components, into small similar components. Okay, so in my case here, I went ahead and I broke it down. You can see the difference. Like what I did, I just put some demarcations here and here. So I put the demarcations like the whole application. So this is the app. Okay, so in my case, I'll say this will be the parent. Okay, this will be one child, the child. But in your case, you can have this being in the same kind of of file. Okay, but in my case, you can still break it down to small components. But in your case, you just see what you need to. This also helps me to see what I need to handle. Because I have two forms which I need to be handled, this one, and also maybe the login, the button. Okay, what it does. But in my case, I know I have one form component. Okay, which has one, two, three other components, or maybe three normal HTML elements. Okay, but they are in a group. Of course, I don't mind about the heading. That one can just be static. Okay, that's why I don't need to mark it. But it's up to you, how you can break down your components. Some people break down components in small chunks, which is readable and precise. Some people prefer having bigger groups, because it gets easier for them to keep track of the files. But in my case, as a developer, I prefer breaking it into small components. Okay, so I can avoid passing it state here. Gonna see why we prefer breaking it into small components, because we want to have what you call stateless components. Okay, that's why we are breaking down small components, small. I'm gonna see it later on, but here it's okay. So if you continue here, now I went ahead and broke it down more. Okay, I say data that needs to be tracked. Okay, that needs to track. Okay, right. So this image is also okay. So the data that needs to be tracked, you have the email and password. The email and password. We don't care about the login. Okay, login. Okay, that's a button. We need to track this and this. Okay, the email and the password. So in my case, I need two two initial values. Okay, or two state values. So what the first step is, you create an initial state. Okay, which has can be a state object, because this data here is in one form and it's kind of related to each other. So what we do is we have an object, define an object with email and password data. Okay, so we have an object which has a key and a key of email and a key of password. Okay, so what second option is, get the form inputs when the user finishes type. So the onChange event, where someone has finished changing something, that's when you grab the inputs. Then you save the values in a variable. Okay, in our case we will save it in some kind of array. Okay, or maybe save it somewhere. Then you can compare it maybe to other values which are only available in the database. That's okay. Then the third part of it, which is easy, is just submit the form to an API. This is just a simple work. This is like a very basic kind of breakdown of how to log in. Okay, you get the data, you get the form, you source them somewhere, then you submit the values to the database. Database will just simply, okay, what's happening here and here. Okay, and then the same, then to output something out, to just compare and gives you what we call a response. Then you can deal with it later on. So go look at that with just the static data. Then we're going to look at it with an actual API and how you can actually log into a system and it works out. Already have a system which is already an API which is already running, and we will share that. I'll make the API open source so you can actually go ahead and look at it and be able to change some things in it and add to it. But as you continue with the program, you are going to create your own APIs, okay, which you use, because now you have control over the API. You can say, you know what, my data will be this kind of way, my data will be this, okay. So that's all of it. The next part is we're going to implement it with the class component, okay. So for today, it's also an introduction to class components, which is like hitting two birds with one stone. So we're going to look at class components. We're also going to look at state, okay? Because the only use of class components previously, before React 16.8, we used to have class components because we need to use state. But since now we have what we call hooks, class components are becoming more and more less used, because with hooks things become easier to use, and things are become more organized and easier to implement. Okay, so and it's lesser code, right? So now the first step is, of course, you set up a class component with a state to track the email and password, and this is how it looks like. Okay, this is the class component. Okay, how it looks like here. Just a simple class. Of course, like always, you import React from React. Okay, and don't worry, you can see Copen's code. Okay, you can see, you can even copy and copy the code here, all of it, but it's all right. Okay, so what you do is you import React from React. Okay, then you also import what called a component. Okay, so it's called React.component, which is a class which allows us to use something called the class, the React based, the React code, okay, or the React library syntax, or the methods and the properties. So when we extend the component, okay, I didn't show you this, but I'll go look at it later on. So the component extends, okay, we extend class login, component extends component, okay, then you have a constructor. This is just OOP. So the constructor simply allows us to define to define properties, okay, which are available to the class. Okay, so but now what we do is login component, okay, the class is called class component, extends component, then we pass in a constructor, then we pass in super, which allows us to have these properties which belong to the component, okay, because the properties of a component are private. So when you use super, you are saying what I want to have access to all the properties of the component. I want them to be within this class constructor. So we are simply make a copy of the properties from the component class from React and simply having them within our login class component. And when you do that, you have access to this state. So this state here, uh, this state is a keyword or a property uh, which is part of the component. Okay, so if you don't have the extends component, of course you won't have access to this state. Okay, so with this state you can declare other. It can be either a string, a number, it can be anything. It can be a string, a number, it can be an array. But usually to make things easy, because you have the email and password which are rated, I'm having this equating to an object, because it's easier to keep track of an object than an array or a string, because I don't have two states. So with this now I have access to the email and the password. Okay, so with the class component, of course, you are using the render method instead of returning normally. You're using a render method to render out JSX. Then, of course, after here, you return. Okay, so with class components, you see, you write the class, then you write the render. That's why we are using mostly are using focusing on the function-based components, because this is too much code to keep track of with render, return, all this. Okay, and it just kind of breaks the norm of JavaScript. Okay, so the next part is we write the JSX. Okay, very simple. Our form with with so remember when we're writing class components, we write the JSX within the return method, return within the return of the render method. Okay, so you have in here our render, then we have the return, then our h1 here, and then our form, like a normal form. I need two inputs here, actually three inputs. The last one, which is type submit, the two first ones, which is type email. Okay, so type email and the name email. Doesn't matter with the names, but for now I want to keep it like name and email just for the sake of it. But you don't need the name and the name here. You just need to pass in the type and that's all. Okay, and then of course to give us another form which we looked at previously. So after doing that, uh, after doing the the whole class, okay, then you have to focus on how to handle the change event, because change event is as easy as we did it they're almost similar. The way you implement it in React, functional based components and also class based components. So here you can see the way we implement it is almost similar. Simply is simply a method, okay, rather a method or a function. You can say a function is something, a function which simply takes in an event, okay, and then when it comes to this component, it has something called state, okay, because you also looked at state, so you also have this on state. That's why with function based components, no class based components, there's too much, okay, but now you have something called this on state, then where you pass in the email and you pass in the object, okay, then you are changing the email, the event on target on value, okay. So the same thing we did with do app. Same thing. We are simply set state, then the event on target on value, which stands for the target for this email. Okay. So same thing we applied for the get email, and then you come here to the on change, you pass in the get email, just like we did it previously. Quite simple, straightforward. And then the next part is uh you handle, so you have to handle for both. You have to handle for the get email, also for the get password. Okay. So for the handle form, even submit, or when you submit the form, it's also simple. You simply okay, I think I'm mistake here. Supposed to be uh this don't get email. Okay, so yes, look sure it's supposed to be this don't get email. I'll change that later on. So when it comes to the the form for submitting, same thing. On submit equals to this one submit data, and submit data is simply a function or a method which takes in event and prevents default, and then you can grab the user like a variable called user. Because I told you before, we are putting the variable, we are creating the third step here. Of course, the third step here, which is where here. The third step is save the four values in a variable. Okay, so I'm going to save them in a variable because we want them to be accessible within our API or our database or some kind of somewhere you're saving them. Okay, so back to okay. So simply when you prevent default, you can save them somewhere. Okay, here the const user, and that's it. Okay, that's it. Then you have access to what? To you have access to the email and password. Okay, but remember, you have to of course make two functions: the get email and the get password, which is kind of redundant. But we're going to look at something called use reducer, which will or reducers, which will get rid of that redundancy. Okay, and that repetition. Okay, so last bit of it, which is implementation what with function components and hooks. Okay, so I'll stop here. Okay, I'll definitely stop here, and then for the hooks and React hooks and function based component is kind of straightforward because I've been looking at it previously. But now let me pass the questions, then we can continue the slides. I think that left is like three or four or three slides, then you'll be done. So if you have questions, feel free to ask, okay, about the class components, because I know most of you it's the first time I'm doing class components. Maybe some of you saw the class components when you are researching. So, but please feel free to ask any questions. Okay, so before I move to the next part, then you can see a simple implementation. Okay, then uh, then we can finish the lesson. So questions, and like always, if you have no questions, please thumbs up in the chat so I can move forward.
Eric, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Eric, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So with class components is where we use states, and then with function components is we are not supposed to use. Okay, like when it comes to functions, can we also use a state there, or now
Yes.
it's totally different?
Okay, that's a great question. When it comes to function based components, okay, you can use state by implementing something called React hooks. Okay, so previously we used to the component here. Let me show you here. Where is this one? Here, the component, the React component.
Yes, use state.
Yes, it had a state. Okay, but now since we are no longer using since we try to run away from OOP in terms of because OOP can get overwhelming, we use React hooks. Okay, so to implement the same thing, we use something called use state. Okay, so go look at it in a minute, so you can see.
So use.
Yeah, use state. Use state is a hook which is used to implement state within a function based component. Okay, We're going to look at it in a moment, okay? But you can still implement,
Use state is similar to a state.
yeah, use state similar to,
Okay, what confuses me is use state.
yes.
Use state sounds like state, and then also states sound like props, or it's like they function like props.
Okay, yeah, you're right. So this state, okay, this is state, okay, is a property on the component.
Mm.
Yeah, the property on the component, like the way you can see maybe a component called maybe cow, okay, has a property of legs. So component has a property called distance state. So when it comes to function-based components, because they cannot use, they have no properties, what we do is you declare variables or constants which infer, which somehow React will handle it and it will act as a state. Okay, so I'm going to show you a difference between the two of them and why I prefer hooks over to this method of using state, because this is odd and it is can get a bit overwhelming. But remember in your mind that this state only belongs to class-based components. Okay, and use state is just a method. Okay, which is used to implement the same kind of similar state within our function-based components. Okay, so we're going to look at it in a minute. Okay, just wait patiently, then you can ask if you don't understand.
Okay.
Okay, okay, good. So, any more question apart from what Pauline asked? And as always, if you have no questions, please thumbs up in the chat. Just thumbs up and thumbs up in the chat uh, to, so you can at least continue and okay, as I'm waiting. Okay, good.
It's me, Eric.
Yes, yes,
Sorry. One last one.
yes, go ahead.
So components, okay, components are like
So components, the word component here, okay, this component here, okay, is just a class, okay, already defined for you within the React library, and you are simply extending it. Okay? So this is like OOP. So when it comes to class components, you have to have some extensive knowledge of OOP. Although we didn't look at OOP, maybe I have a lesson of OOP later on, but object-oriented programming. So when it comes to class-based components, you are simply saying, I want to extend how this component works and looks like. I want to extend it and have it uh, as like all the classes and methods will be available within my class.
folder, right?
Yes. Yeah. So this component is found somewhere within.
Hello?
Yes, you're saying. Yes, yes,
Hello?
yes. I can hear you. Yes, Pauline, I can hear you loud and clear.
Hello? Oh, okay. I wasn't hearing. So I was saying, okay, I was saying, so in a component, we can either code in it using a class or a function.
Yes, perfect. Yes, we can.
Okay,
Yes.
my question is you can either choose to use a class or you can choose to use a function. Is that it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's how you. That's how it is.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes. So and previously we used to focus on classes because we needed to implement state. But now we no longer have to focus on classes because we have hooks. Okay? And the next part here, which is uh, here, implementing with function a function component, okay, and hooks. Okay, so this is the most where I personally will as me as personally I'll focus on hooks because I find hooks to be easier to implement and a bit kind of and easier to implement and easier to keep track of. Okay, as well as the concept, and they have better performance compared to classes. So I could look at how to implement using a function-based component. The same thing we did with with uh, with a class-based component. Okay, and it's easy. I think okay, this all of it, yes. Okay, so it's just one file this time because it's one file, and but it's gonna get a bit overwhelming also because I did break it into small parts. But the first part, let's first look at this first part, the last part, which is the the form. Okay, so the form is simply a normal HTML or JSX form. Okay, with input and password and type and all this. Okay, and this form form input has the same thing as the class component. Okay, same stuff. There's no difference. And of course, as always, you have to export it because you want to share it within other files. Okay, so now before we actually look at other parts, you can see uh, we having a function. Okay, instead of a class. Okay, and the function is called login form. Okay, login form. And this line, or I can say line 5, line 4, we are having uh, these two constants. Okay, the first constant and the second constant. Okay, so the first constant simply says I want to have two variables, email and set email. Okay, and then we use the use state method, or the use state it's a method. Yeah, it's a method. It's a function. It's a function which allows us to pass on state. Okay, which says that now I have a variable called email, which simply equals to an empty string. We're gonna look at this because I'm going to just implement this real quick in the next 5 minutes. So let's copy and paste the code. Then I'm gonna pass and put them back together. Okay. Then I'm having the first one is a constant which has email, which is equal to an empty string. The password equal to an empty string. And then of course we have the get email function. Also get the get password function. Then of course the submit it's almost the same thing. Okay, there's no difference. Now what we have got rid of is only one thing. Something like two things. We have got rid of the this keyword. Okay, so you don't have to say this dot state dot serve this dot what. Okay, we simply call a function called state set password. Okay, so we're gonna look at this in a moment. Okay, and I'll explain it better because I think I'm taking so much time explaining the 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 class components. Okay, but I'm going to do this real quick. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is simply I'll copy this code. Okay, can actually, because this code is available for you, you can see copy it. Okay, copy it and try it out. Okay, so those who have no access to the slides, maybe copy them here and give you access to slides. Okay, these are the slides. You can have access to the slides. So what I'm gonna do for now, I'm going to just open up VS Code real quick. The same project that we did previously. The same, I think that's to do up. I think that's to do up. Okay. So I think that's to do up. I hope you can see this comes here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to, of course, what did I do? Okay, let's do this first. Fix something here before I continue. Also, I want to do something called package package doc JSON. and and this is a good thing because remember what was it I'm not sure who asked me last time, but you are saying using npm and yarn. Remember, if you're using npm, you have this something called package dash loc.json. Okay, that's why I'm ignoring it here. Okay. Package. So this package on loc.json is almost the same thing as this. The difference is this helps us to track npm packages way better. Okay, it's okay for this. So what I would do, of course, let me first get what was it called? Let me first get uh
Eric,
yes, yes.
Sorry for interrupting you.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
was wondering, there is something that I didn't get.
Okay.
Did you first render, then you returned? Like you did render, then you returned, or you first returned and
Okay, let me show
then
it
you
one more time.
rendered?
Okay, so it is oh, where is it? It is render then return. So you render, then inside the render you return. So it is render then return. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's now look at this real quick. Okay. So I think I should ignoring it. Why? It's all right. Okay. It has ignored. Perfect. So I'll let me just add this real quick. Okay. I think then get check out something. Get branch. And let's check which branch was it. It was main, I think. So get check out. Okay, this was a new machine. That's why it is giving me so many time. Let's first remove this one. There to avoid errors. But it should not change. Uh, I need, okay, so I need to just pause it. Okay, dash F. Okay, so I'll just pause this checkout. Is it the one? No, it's not the one. I need to find the other one, the other branch which had nothing. It's called React. Let me just use the same one. Okay, that doesn't matter. So what I'm gonna do, I'll create a new component. Okay, here, very simple. Add a counter here, a form here. I'm gonna create another component. I'm going to call it maybe login. Okay, then tsx. Okay, is okay. Then I'll copy the code which I was showing you in the slide. Can do the same if you want to follow along. This code here, which was the one of the function based component, which is here. I'll copy this, come back to my VS code, then paste the whole code. Okay, of course it will open here and here because we are using TypeScript. But I'll just remember if there's an error and you have it's concerning parameter event, something like implicitly has an any type, just simply make it any. Okay, let be any. It is okay, and if everything work out. Okay, and of course there should be an error here. There also event here, any. Okay, save this. Okay, let's increase the size because it's quite small. Okay, let me see. Perfect. So with this, I've already finished. I've already copied the code and pasted it somewhere. Okay, so I can go back to my app. Okay, and import it. So come here down here. I'll import and then just put some here, maybe an H1 thing counter. Then here maybe this is H1 still H1 thing to do up. Okay, I've joined them together and just put anything. So then yes, maybe I'm just arranging my work a bit just to make it a bit more cleaner and more readable in the future. So I can get these two here, X them, I put them here. So I have a counter, which is also maybe an info section. Okay, here about this. Now I'm going to have also another section containing our form. Okay, containing our H1 saying uh, login form. Okay, then I can now bring in my login form. Okay, from the components folder. Okay, so I'm simply importing here on top, importing login form from dot slash component slash login. This folder here is app. Then from app you go to components, then you find login. Okay, login is this login here. Okay, so now I have login form, and if I run this, hope it runs. There's no npm start. Hope it runs, and there's no errors. Hopefully, I'm hoping it runs. Okay, because it's a new machine, so it may like start bugging me. But it's okay. So as it's running, okay, access, it's all right. It's taking quite long to load, but hopefully it's starting. And here it will be. Where is it? Localhost 3000. Localhost 3000. Not 3000. Okay, perfect. That's shown up. Okay. Although okay, I didn't save this. That's why it wasn't working. I didn't save this, and go ahead also. Did I save the login? Yes, I saved it. Now it looks like this. Okay, looks like this. Okay, just make smaller. Let me just also remove the full screen mode. Okay, so you can see here I'm having let's close this up. So I'm having this login form. It looks ugly because I didn't put anything else, put some line breaks here real quick, just to make it look just a little bit nicer. I'll put here some breaks here, line breaks, BRs here and here. Copy the BR, put it here. I'm other BR, like two of them. Just make sure it's just nice. Okay. Want it to look ugly, but it's alright. I save this. Back to my code here. Okay, good. Okay, this is a login form here. Okay, this line here, and hopefully you can see it. And to make it way better, let me just remove the other ones. Okay, just comment them out. Go back to my app. Come to this section here, starting from this section up to the first section here. Comment them out. Okay, and of course, it will look better. Okay, with my application. Perfect. Okay, this is our login form. Quite ugly, but still is powerful because it's doing so much. Okay, because now I have access to this to 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 the email and the password. Okay, maybe let's log out something here. Let's log out the user. Okay, just log out because we don't have an API to work with. Then I'll explain the stuff later. Let me see if it works to be sure because okay. Okay, so let me see the console real quick. Let me type here. Let me say it's Eric. Okay, the password is 12345. Then of course it's an error. That's okay. Doesn't matter. Then I can submit or send email. Eric at campabits.org. Okay, actually that. Then I submit. Of course, if you are careful, you can see. Come here. You can see I'm having my email and password. Okay. Let's see if I type something more. If I change here, maybe to if I change this, okay, change the email and also the password. But say the email now is maybe is my surname at campabit, okay, .org, and maybe the password is password then I can submit. You see, of course, the terminal is not okay. It's not refreshing. That's why it stays there. But you can see I'm having now the email and the password. Okay, so now you have access to the email and password. So if you imagine you have access to the email and password from this input, you can simply go ahead and maybe check. Okay, check within your database. You have someone called Muez at carbis.org or password carbis.org the password, the actual password. The compare then you can say, okay, since I have the email and password, okay, this password exists, this password is authenticated, please log them in and please maybe redirect on next page. Okay. So let's look at how we implemented this real quick, and then you can ask questions, then you can close the session. So maybe let's move this one, remove this from here, and remove also the sidebar. Okay, good. Now also this. Yeah, good. So now the first thing we did, of course, we importing React from React. Okay, React from React. We import even this before you import this menu state, we are importing React from React, like always for every component, although it's necessary, but it's a good practice to import React from every component. Okay, and then of course we create our login form component using the function component. But if you can say, you know what, I want to use the arrow the arrow function, this is okay. And when you use the arrow function, you can still work the same way. There's no difference. Then of course remember the function this login. Oh, let's close this up here. We'll bring them later. Okay. So this login component returns some form. Okay. This is a JSX. And then since you have this JSX, we need now to implement the actual functionality of the application of how maybe how you can fetch the input, how to submit the form, all that. Okay. The first thing we did, of course, we first declare the two variables tracking. Okay. Yes, if we look at our wonderful, what is it? Yeah, our wonderful presentation, which was saying that the first thing we do, of course, was uh, where is it? Okay, it was the one. The first thing we did was to create an initial state, okay, of the password and the email, okay. So that's why I went ahead. I created two variables, sorry, four variables, although you can consider them to be two variables. The first one was the email, and the initial state is that an empty string. The second one was password, which is also an empty string. So the use state function allows us to imitate a state, okay? Imitate some kind of a state. So we are simply saying the email, and then this second, the first variable, or the first item in the array is actual state. Okay, the second item is the set state, and we equate it to the use state because use state returns an array of I think of 3 items. But since now you are passing into items, you return into items. So it returns a salary which returns 2 items, which is the initial state and the dispatch method, which is used to change the state, or the state method. So we have the email is a set email function or method called the use state. So same applies to the email and to the password. So what applies to email applies to password. There's no difference. So of course, we before we declare the get email function, we first go ahead and look at the input. Okay, you're trying to get this input and you're trying to use the onChange method. When you change the input, or when you type something and you release stop typing and maybe move to the next input, I want what you've typed in to be grabbed. That's why I come here and say get email. I get the event, then I set the event to target on value. The value which you have typed in, I set it to the email. Okay, so at this moment here, at this moment here, the first moment here, the email is an empty string. Next step here, the email becomes the value. Okay, so the same thing we have applied to email, we apply to password. Okay, so after applying to both of them and grabbing the password and email, okay, we can now go ahead and grab and submit that. Okay, submit somewhere, because the form after typing in one here password is second value, you click the submit button. Okay, so when you submit, what you want to do, we want to prevent default, we want to handle the form ourselves, that's why we are preventing default. So the second thing, we are creating a constant or a variable to, let me just say, prevent default behavior of a form. Okay, and allows us to control it. Okay, behavior. Then of course now this one we are simply storing the email and password in a variable or a constant. Then here you're simply logging out here, so I don't need what to do that. You understand that. Then of course we have called our submit function, which submits the data, and of course it takes in an event which simply invests the vote and simply stores here. So when you store here the constant, you can simply go ahead and maybe continue and submit to the database or to an API and continue like that. Okay, so I'm going to leave the floor open to you guys to ask questions. Uh, Before I actually allow you to ask questions, remember the use state simply allows you to imitate the class component. Okay, it immediate that this to state and this to set state kind of the whole thing. So then get questions from you, and then we can close the session. And if you have no questions, like always, please thumbs up in the chat so we can test. No, you have no questions.
Eric, excuse me, Eric.
Yes.
I think I missed out on your explanation on event.target.value. I beg your pardon.
Okay. So the event.target.value is simply a way of us grabbing, going ahead and grabbing. Let me just bring it up from here. Where is it? It's here. Grabbing in this value. Okay. So the event itself, the event is the action of you maybe typing. That's the event happening to the form. Then the target. Let me just show you. Just log out the target here. An example. Then log in, log out. The event. Okay. You can call it here. Event. Okay. Okay. Just log out the target. Okay. This event on target. Now I'll show you the target. Target. Okay. Let's say event target. Okay. Let's save this. Okay. So let me just show you a quick. Let's clean this up. Okay. So I did save. Save. Okay. Here. So let me clean this up real quick. Clean it up. Then maybe remove this. Okay. Remove this. Okay. So although now if I type, maybe if I type something, actually mu, that's too much. Okay. Let's clean this up one more time. It's too much. If I type m, okay, you can see now the event is this event, okay? It's called a synthetic base event, okay? It's an event on the browser, okay? And the target, okay? The target is targeting this input, okay? That's why if I try to hover on this, it shows me this input, okay? And the input has something called value, okay? That's a value. That's an attribute called value, okay? So that's why I'm saying the value is this something which you type in, okay? So when I say event dot target dot value, I'm simply saying grab what the user types in, okay, and save it as our
Okay.
email. Yes, applies the same thing for password and for email. Okay, same applies. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I get it now.
Okay. Great. Yes. Uh, you guys have more any questions? Yeah, about the video. Let me stop and up. Actually, I don't have time. So, but I'll upload it just when like in the next few hours. Upload it. I'll upload it at least and upload it at least before 9 p.m. and I'll share it Slack over Slack. Okay, let me grab my honey dandy. Good. So I'll share the video for the last time videos. I told you I had an issue with them, so I can't share them because they have no voice. They have no audio. But for today's session, I'll upload it today. The only thing is the internet here is quite kind of slow at the office, so I'll upload it when I reach home on my Wi-Fi. So since you guys have no more questions, I will leave you to leave in on a code. And when I pass on the video, I'll also pass on some assignment for you to try out. So a good evening to you and have a blessed night. You can leave at your own accord.